1,000 kids that we've helped, and our success rate is extremely good, one of the best in the nation for what we do. We have an annual budget of about $72 million, of which the Yacht donation program contributes a lot to. And we currently have 44 programs in 10 states operating right now. And let's keep our fingers crossed for everybody that the kids go back to school soon. We're doing it all via online right now, trying to help the kids online, and phone calls would help you. So, we want to continue doing what we do to help the kids, and that's all we do. We work directly for the company, for AMI Kids, and everything that we generate through the boat program goes directly to helping the kids. So that's why we accept yacht donations, so that we can help our schools, and we help brokers and donors with a problem. And that problem is they can't get enough for the boat. For whatever reason, the market won't accept that amount, or the boat's been just too customized, and they just, your owner just won't lower the price. He can't accept that realization that the market just won't bear what he wants. So again, I think most of you understand what yacht donation is about, so we don't need to rehash that so much. The largest, there's 3 different kinds of programs I want to tell you very quickly about that people utilize for yacht donation. Significant intervening use is one where you may have seen it like with seakeepers, where they actually use the boat for research. And in order to do that, the vessel has to be used significantly to conduct activities, and it has to be considerable. In other words, you can't just use it every now and then. They're going to use it in their daily activities, and that's kind of what Seakeepers does with their research stuff. There is the outright sale, where people just sign the boat over to us, and then whatever you, the broker, are able to sell the boat for us for becomes the basis of their tax write-off. And then the third, and most widely used by us, of course, is the materially improved, where the owner gets an appraised value on the boat. We materially improve that vessel so that, one, we're following the IRS directive to invest our own money in it to better the boat, and 2, it makes the boat more marketable for you. Perhaps the boat needs 3,000 hours service, or maybe it needs to have the engines rebuilt, something to that effect. So that's about 98% of the boats that we receive come in under that program. And then after the material improvements are done, then we work with you, the broker, who retains the CA and gets the boat out on lease for us. So that's the short narrative of how it works. Now, there is going to be a whole bunch of questions about what about this, what about that. We can answer those questions for you. One of the things that's very important. Can you go to the next screen, please, Jorge?
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Great. One of the most important things that the broker needs to know when you talk to an owner about the possibility of doing a donation is the appraisal process. And there seems to be a lot of confusion with people that the appraised value is going to be sort of an insurance value, or what you currently have the boat on the market for. And it generally doesn't come out like that unless it's a production boat, a smaller production boat. A lot of these boats are highly customized, they're unusual, and the way the appraisers work up the numbers on them, they'll generally come out to more than what the yacht will bear on the market. And it's completely legitimate to do that. The IRS recognizes it, and the appraisers that donors use are able to back up what their numbers are for. So
that's Roger. One of the I think in the current situation, there's a lot of uncertainty about how much is a boat going to be worth, a month or 2 months from now.
Right.
And there's a key difference between donation with an appraisal, which is basically a replacement value, and a market value. And traditionally, the bigger the gap between an appraised value and a market value is better for donation. So this is one of the advantages that we have for brokers at this time right now, because the owner can have a actual value of their vessel that's not dependent on how the buyers or how the sellers are feeling about it.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
go ahead.
yeah. You know, I think it's a big unknown right now, what the economy is going to do in the near future. And I think a lot of people are certainly concerned. We're actually concerned because it's not healthy for the charity to hold on to our vessels. We want to get them in, get them materially improved, and get them back out, get them on lease so that we can have cash flow coming in to help support the schools. So, you know, we're taking a look at our vessels that we have right now and the potential ones coming in and trying to ascertain where that market actually is. So, also important to note is that you, the broker who bring it to the boat to the table, have the option of retaining the listing and working it for us. There are some brokers who perhaps the boat is not in their backyard, it's far away, and they might say, you know, here, take a donation and, you know, I'll take a part of the finder's fee and then you can find another broker to represent it for you. By and large, that doesn't happen too much. Who wants to give up a listing, especially a good one that may be priced right? But there is that option there. We try and maintain a good inventory so that people are able to lease boats from us. And let me tell you, the lease program is very good when you consider it's the same as leasing a car, in that you're putting in about a third of the total amount of money down. You're going to pay a third of monthly payments interest-free for 3 years, and then you have the option. And you know, some people do give us the boats back. It doesn't happen that often, but some do. Or they can option on the boat. We sign over the title to them. So it's a very low-cost way of using somebody else's money for the boat.
And it's a very, I mean, it's a really low-risk alternative. You're considering that people can grab a lease of a boat with very favorable exit terms instead of buying it with cash, and it's interest free. So I think that's a huge advantage of this program in terms of risk. You know, I was listening to a statistic. Average boat ownership time 3 years. Our leases are 3 years, so you could pretty much have a new boat every 3 years, and you know, it's a great alternative.
And our leases don't need to keep the boat for 3 years either. They have the option of reassigning the lease. So it happens to us all the time. You get somebody, they come and lease our boat, and a year, 2 years down the road, they say, you know what, this is not the right boat for me, or I'm getting out of boat, whatever the case may be. They can list the boat with a broker, find somebody to assume the lease. Any cash transactions are between the two individuals. We don't need to be involved. Although we do need to run a credit check and approve the new leasee who's going to assume the balance of the lease. So they're not stuck with it for 3 years if they don't want it. So.
All right. So I have a question here from Kelly, and it says, how quickly can you get a donation completed?
Typically, we can do it in less than 30 days. If the boat is foreign flagged and it's in a corporation or an LLC, it may take a little bit of doing there. Kelly Collins, our administrator, has been doing this for more than 20 years, and she's very, very good at working with all concerned to get things done as quickly as possible. So they're doing. The only thing that would upset the apple cart right now we're experiencing, and it's probably going to be over soon, is the pandemic has got some yards shut down and surveyors not working, things of that nature. Dudley and I, Dudley, if you don't know, I'm talking about Dudley Savage is my coworker who's been doing this for many years. We're both in the process of bringing some boats in and setting up surveys, so things are loosening up. But depending on the boat, how big the boat is, complexity of the boat, again, foreign flagging, things of that nature, sales tax due, It could take a little bit longer, especially if attorneys are involved. But typically 30 days we can get it done.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from David Guzman. Can you discuss the benefits to the owner's leases? I think that we were talking about that recently. And it's this slide that's on the screen right now. So a few comments there. We have no emotional attachment to the vessel. We need the vessel out the door on a lease. So we're going to price it right, and we're going to price it to go. And that's the difference between my kids and the owner or the former owner, the donor of the boat. A lot of the time they have a separation anxiety, as one of them recently described it. We're gonna acknowledge their anxiety, and we're gonna appreciate it, and then we're gonna put out the boat in a competitive price. So by law, we have to improve that vessel. If it's a lease program vessel, so the broker gets a listing, it retains a listing that is now improved in some way, and that is also priced competitively. So that's a huge advantage for the broker. And then again, the lessee, 35% down, 1% a month for 3 years, and it's a fantastic deal.
Yeah. And listen, as far as pricing goes, we have in-depth discussions with the facilitating broker about where in the market should we put this boat, and what do we need to do material improvement wise to make the boat better for the market. And by and large, I find that most brokers want to price the boat higher than it actually should be, and it'll take longer to get the boat out. So again, as far as I said, we're not emotionally attached to it. This is a business transaction in which we're running spreadsheets on how much it's going to cost us to bring this boat in, the material improvements, the following holding costs on the boat, marketing, boat shows, what have you. We don't want to hold on to the boat. The sooner we can get it out on lease, the better. And the conversations that Dudley and I will have with you are, what is it going to take to get this boat out the door without wholesaling it within 120 days? That's our goal, 120 days. So we want it to be competitively priced. We don't want to leave money on the table, obviously, but we don't want to give it away. But we do want to move it, because holding costs are what kills us, just like the owner.
Yeah. So we don't want to end up in the same position as the owner we relieved, right? That's the concept. We have a question from Ted, which is, I think, is a very good question to segue into explaining a little bit about the organization and what we do. It says, why not push to sell after improvement? The donor is received at fair value prior to improvement. That's a question. So let's take the first half, Roger, and why don't you tell us, why not push to sell the vessel after it's been improved?
Why not push to sell after? That's what we do. The boat typically isn't on the market until after the material improvements are done. But what we also find is, if the boat's been on the market for a while and the broker has control of it, he probably has a few people waiting that were interested in the boat, maybe even made offers, but the owner would not come down in price. But he's advised them, listen, the charity is going to take over this boat now. They're going to fix some of the things that we found that were wrong, trying to make it better, and then put it back out there at a price that may be good for you. So we try and wait until the material improvements are done, but sometimes there's some back pocket marketing going on there, which helps.
And then I just want to make a precision. We want the boat gone. We don't want it in our care and custody. We cannot sell it per se after improvement if it's a boat that is under our lease program, and that is per IRS regulations. So there's two alternatives we offer our donors. Number one, and Roger mentioned it a minute ago, outright sale, maximized convenience. Give me the boat and I'll make it go away. We'll sell it, and whatever it sells for becomes a tax deduction basis for the donor. Now, like we said, we're going to price them aggressively, and then the tax benefit is not really maximized in the appraisal process. When the value of the market is not related to a sell but a appraisal, then we keep the boat for 3 years, and we lease it. That's the difference, and that's why we don't necessarily sell them but lease them. And your next question is: the donor is receipted per value prior to improvement. The donor is receipted by either an appraisal that's done by a third party and an arm's length, or by whatever the bill of sale of the boat says. Um, let me keep going, and this is a very nice, interesting conversation, but I want to get to some success stories. So these are all boats that Roger has brought to AMI Kids. And why don't you tell us a little bit of the story from this vessel, so we can see this is act in real time.
Yeah, Nikita was on the market for a little while through Leon's Richard at Worth Avenue, and she was a very nice boat, but the owner was a bit unrealistic about what he thought the value of it was, and he's a money guy, so he's crunching numbers and what have you. And ultimately, Leonce was able to convince him to just open the discussion about a donation. And it turned out it worked very well for him. He was a very, very busy person. He did not want to be bothered with the sales process. And his appraisal was enough to where it was lucrative enough for him to give us the vessel. Once he did, we did complete surveys and sea trials on all of our vessels. And we did some considerable material improvements to her. So she turned out to be a very, very nice boat. And a family who has leased, I think it's 3 boats from us prior over probably a 20-25 year period, wound up leasing this boat from us. It's how much they like the lease program. So it turned out to be a good legacy boat. And I'm sure this won't be the last boat that they get from us. So
We have a question here, and it says, sorry. So all right. So what about sailboats? And do you take non-running boats?
Sailboats, certainly. We have taken many, many sailboats over the years, but as a lot of you know, especially as brokers, if you sell sailboats, it's a very, very difficult market right now. And if it is not your typical production sailboat, let's just say like a Beneteau, that are very popular with people and very maintenance free and what have you. A lot of the older, more beautiful sailboats that are completely complex and may have teak decks and lots of bright work and things of that nature can have a very, very long sales time. So we will take sailboats, but there's a lot of consideration for what the boat is, where it's located, what the market is for the boat. And we would probably price a sailboat in the bottom of the market. And again, unless it's something special, but we do take sailboats. As far as non-running boats go, it would be rare that we would accept a boat like that. But again, it depends on the boat. What's the total package? What is the boat worth? Can we afford to rebuild or replace engines and make it running again? There's just, I wouldn't tell you, or what I would tell you, please, is to always give us a call and ask, hey, are you interested in this boat? And maybe we are, maybe we're not. We can't take them all. But
yeah, we have a question from Bob. He's very enthusiastic, and he says, how do I get started? And I think this ties nicely to what you're talking about. Call us. We have a full-time staff of 5 people working in our boat yard in St. Petersburg. And our sole purpose is providing brokers, financial advisors, owners, lawyers with the support information and with all the correct process for getting a donation through. So as a broker or as an influencer of a donation, you don't need to know the process to perfection. You just need to know that you have to call Roger or Dudley or our office, and we will walk you through it. And we will recommend what is the best alternative for any particular boat, and we will analyze any boat in a case by case basis. So I think that's important to bring up. We
What
have
Dudley's
Smile.
I'm sorry, Jorge. Go ahead.
We have Smiley on the screen, and we were talking about it in the beginning. And Brian is attending our webinar. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this 85 azimuth?
Okay. Smiley, which is formerly Nyhaven, was brought to the table by Brian France, and this is one of the things to say that Brian has learned to know all the answers or know a lot of the answers to the questions, and partly is because he used to be in the financial world, but also he's done 3 or 4 donations with us, and it's part of his personal business plan to facilitate at least 1 donation every year, and I think he has achieved that. So I'm counting on another one this year, Brian. This 85 azimuth, formerly again known as Nyhaven, was owned by a prominent attorney up in Pensacola, and he had already been in the market and found his next boat, which I think was a 130, and did not want to be a 2-boat owner, and was also familiar with what we do because we have a school up in Pensacola. So it was an easy conversation for Brian to say, hey, do you want to consider the option of donation? And it went very smoothly, and ultimately it just made everybody happy. So, as a matter of fact, I can see the boat outside my window. We just brought it down here from Panama City to finish her up and get her ready for market. So great boat and easy transaction for everybody involved. So
We have a question from Norm, and it says, what is the minimum value of a vessel you deal with in order to make sense for you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Norm is asking, what is the minimum value of a vessel you will deal with in order to make sense for you?
That's a tricky question because the value has an implication of whether it's an ORS, an outright sale, or what we just call a lease boat, the material improvement. And many years ago, it was decided that a boat needs to have a market value, not the appraised value, but a market value of at least $150,000 or more for it to qualify for our lease program. And that's because at the end of the day, between finder's fees, commissions, material improvements, holding costs, boat shows, marketing at all, there's just not that much money left at the end of the day when everything's said and done. So we'd like to see 150 or better. Below that, we're more looking for the ORS. They just turn the boat over to us, and whatever you, the broker, are able to sell it for, then becomes the basis for their tax write-off.
Mm-hmm. So it's 2:29. We had slotted a half hour for this. I'm gonna put the next slide on screen. That's Roger's mugshot and contact information. I'm happy to continue to answer to some questions, and there's a couple more if anyone has any. If not, I want to invite everybody, if you would like to do something like this again, we will have another webinar next week, and it's going to be the same day, Wednesday at 2 p.m. So if you want to join and have more questions, we can address them then. Here's a question I think that is worth addressing, and I think that if no more questions pop up in the chat box, we'll leave it like that. It says, how does my donation help at-risk youth? So, Roger, you want to start with that question?
You know, since you're involved in the Marine Education Program, I think you're probably even better suited to answer that question than I am. I've been doing this for about 5 years, but you are much more intricately involved with the kids themselves personally than I am. So.
All right. Well, yeah. So we help a multitude of kids in different avenues. We have residential programs, we have prevention programs, we have aftercare programs, we have charter schools, we have vocational programs. So a number of things. AMI Kids is an organization that it has a $72 million budget, and we have contracts with state and with the federal government. Largely, the $72 million come from those contracts. So we're a very well-established charity that's been around for 50 years. And our objective is to provide the kids with the tools that will allow them to transform whatever landed them in our program into a stepping stone for a bright future. We provide assistance in terms of therapy. We provide substance abuse therapy. We have functional family therapy. There's a number of components. And one of the key components that Roger was mentioning about is our experiential education. Now, the state and the government don't necessarily fund these components in full. For example, we go every year, we take the kids to the Florida Keys, we teach them how to dive, we take them rappelling. We have these Olympic style events where they come and all our 44 programs compete in these athletic and academic events. All these things need some supplemental funding. So the proceeds from our leases of the boats or from sales when it's an outright sale, they all go to our programs and serve our kids directly. I'm very proud to work for AMI Kids. It's a great organization, and it's very clear. The integrity of the transaction is really clear cut, and there's a lot of transparency, and that's one of the reasons why AMI Kids is the go-to organization for discerning individuals, because of the transparency, because it's very clear and you can see right through it.
Hey, you know, one of the overarching things that we like to stress is that after over 40 years of doing this as an organization, by and large, convenience is the #1 factor. Owners just, they get tired of the sales process, the offers and counter offers and all that surrounds it. And if you, the broker, approach them from the standpoint, hey, Mr. Customer, if I can get you a tax write-off that meets or exceeds what you were trying to get for the boat, would that work for you? You never know unless you have that conversation. And just very quickly, working with Jeff Stanley over at Gilman Yachts, he had a client who owned a 73-foot Donzi R73 that Jeff had mentioned to him several times about donating the boat because they just couldn't get it sold. He just wanted too much for the boat. And he just, no, don't want to donate the boat. I'm not interested in that. And then a few years ago at the new Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, Jeff was walking the dock with him and the guy's wife, and he finds I believe it was I don't remember, it was a 75-foot motor yacht that he's told his wife, that's the boat I want, that's the boat I'm going to buy. And she said, okay, but you get that other thing off my dock. And he turned to Jeff and said, donate it. That's how quickly sometimes people will change their mind about donation. You never know when they've got a tax liability that they can use that write-off for a life change, a death in the family. I'm working on 2 potential donations coming in right now that were instantaneous deaths in the family, and the state doesn't want to bother with the sales process. So you never know unless you don't ask the question. And if you just plant the seed and then point them towards Dudley and I, we can get all the right answers to the questions for them.
Thank you. And I think we can leave this presentation in that note. Thank you everybody for attending. This recording will be available online. We'll put it in our YouTube channel, and I will make sure to follow up with everybody who attended and subscribed. If you need anything, contact information on the screen, and I hope we can all have an in-person meeting sometime soon. Thank you very much, Roger, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate the
Call us
attendance.
if you need us.